Hello everyone, we want to thank you for watching and we want to thank our professor on a great semester. This will conclude our MSE 402 semester with the final project presentation video on our epoxy lacquer table and benches. Our group members include myself, Vahe, Ananta, who is our finance manager, Sahu, who is our quality and risk manager, Christian, who is our manufacturing engineer, Harnik, our design engineer, and Jonathan, who is our sales and marketing manager. These are the contents that will be included in our presentation. Starting with phase 1 of our company formation. HomeDecor.Inc. started as a high-end luxury furniture company specializing in epoxy tables. We make different size and pattern tables according to customer needs and demand. We initially had to understand the different factors of building either epoxy tables or wall painting robots. So as our project alternatives, we had the idea of wall painting robots to cut time on actually doing home renovations, but clearly it wasn't as easy to make, with some parts being either too hard to find or being too expensive. This is our project selection matrix on how we decided onto epoxy tables versus wall painting robots. We took into account a lot of factors such as profit margins, affordability, and creativity. Total weights came out to 77 for epoxy tables and 58 for wall painting robots, so it was much wiser for us to choose the epoxy table. Phase 2 of our project. The policy was formed as per the regulations we were taught during the classroom teaching sessions. Each of these mentioned policies were personally applied to the course of our project, even with the regulations which were made to the policy on or after March 20th. Our quality tests included gel time, bond strength, Brookfield viscosity, compressive strength, and durability tests. The company structure was first developed according to everybody's area of comfort and expertise, but as we wanted everyone to learn a bit of each sector, we tried to distribute responsibilities equally. The company's culture is what defined the behavioral aspect of our project, beginning from manufacturing a bold product and personalizing the product as per customer demand to working with each other despite of having different academic backgrounds along with different skill sets. We were successfully able to live by the culture. The phase 2 required us to define the scope of our project, which was to design and build a set of epoxy table and 4 chairs as an extension to our pre-existing scheme of developing another section of our company. The deliverables were brainstormed during the definition as well. The work breakdown structure helped us in defining the areas which we would most concentrate on and to have a better understanding of the tasks which were included in the activities. The next step after defining the task was to assign them to particular team members. That was done with the help of a responsibility matrix. The responsible person for the task is defined by R, and the ones who supported him or her are defined by S. We had split up the project in different departments. Major department was our epoxy pour and legs in terms of our finance. The time estimation was the greatest for our brainstorming department, since we had to continuously go back to rethink some of our ideas and problems. The total time on working on the project took 22 straight hours of working. Our bill of materials was a long and heavy list with about 399 parts and a total project equaling to $349.92. We got all the materials we needed and even saved money on some of the parts by changing up some processing for the legs. The development of a project plan enabled us to do the proper scheduling of tasks and resources allocation. The development of the plan started with a network information table which shows the preceding tasks to a particular task and the times as well. The next step was to develop a network diagram which includes the relative times taken by each activity, along with the slack time as well. It enabled us to determine how much buffer time we would have in case if we were to hit a roadblock. We knew starting at the project we would be involved in some risks and problems along the way. This breakdown structure gives us some insight on some problems we initially thought about that we might run into along the way. Risk assessment form. This risk assessment form visualizes the probability and impacts of these scenarios. This is our risk response matrix, the last step of our risk management, which involves alternative plans in case of problems that might arise. Having a response matrix gives us the chance to stop a problem before it becomes out of hand, sometimes even preventing the problem even before they start. Our sales and marketing department is currently looking for buyers on many different platforms such as OfferUp. Advertising is one of the biggest key factors in having some attention for your product. It also helps with selling and getting your product out there. We would like to thank you for viewing our PowerPoint presentation. We will follow up the presentation with a video on our time-lapse process. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is going to be a time-lapse video on the process of our epoxy table and benches. After receiving supplies, we had to cut wood for sizing up the benches to make the 3/4 inch thick boards 12 inch wide and 48 inches long. We began sanding down the boards since we were going to primer them and paint. We needed to make sure the paint properly bonds to prevent any chipping or flaking. It assured the paint will properly seal the wood from any moisture or any climate change. We began to spray the paint boards black to assure we get the base black coat finish in case we miss some parts with the epoxy. The spray paint will make sure the appearance doesn't have any wood sidings.
Alright, boss, go.
While waiting for some of the boards to dry, we had to calculate how much epoxy would be needed for each bench, total of 4. We had calculated about 140 ounces of base black epoxy for all 4 benches, not including any of the colored purple and gold highlights. The epoxy consists of 1 part of resin and 1 part hardener, which when in contact with each other began increasing temperature to create a strong adhesive bond, which had the greatest tensile strength when fully dried and cured, sometimes as strong as 5,000 psi. We began moving the black base colored epoxy to cover the whole board, kind of like creating our own canvas. The epoxy will then self-level itself out, creating a smooth level finish when dried before fully drying. We added colored purple and gold highlights in tribute to one of the greatest Los Angeles Lakers of all time with the Lakers color scheme. We began to spray the top of the epoxy with a light dab of rubbing alcohol to prevent any bubbles from arising. It gives off kind of like a mosaic tile look, which then turns to normal epoxy look when dried up. We have continued the same process for the rest of the 2 boards with the base black epoxy first, then adding the colored highlights. Of course, as you can see, we have opened up black plastic to prevent any runoff drips of the epoxy, also to prevent any yelling from anyone because of the mess that we made.
Ocean, traveling in slow motion, paddling with no question.
From here, we began to use the hair dryer as an alternative to rubbing alcohol since we were running low. With the pandemic going around, rubbing alcohol became harder to come by. Thankfully, this method helped with the bubbles forming as well. For the table, we were making the indented lettering different colors than the actual table. We had to take our time and carefully form a wall around the writing, preventing any of the other colors to mix with the writing. After we constructed the table to keep the epoxy out from pouring in the indentations, we had to begin the same process by spraying the table black. We began with the hot air to prevent any bubbles from arising on the table as well. When the table came nearly dry but not cured yet, we began taking off the blue tape wall we built. Epoxy was about tacky but still wet. After receiving materials for the bench legs, we got 12 20-inch long boards by 12-inch wide boards with a 1.5 inch thickness. Since we had 4 benches, we decided on 3 legs each, 2 for the outside and 1 for the supporting metal. We had to sand a little bit since we wanted to seal the wood again with primer and black Latex outdoor paint. We quickly ran into problems but quickly figured a solution as to how the legs would mount to the epoxy bench. From a profile view of the wooden leg, we routed off 3/4 inch deep to have the board sit on the actual wooden legs and routed off 3/4 inch off to the width to account for screws from the side of the wood board to actually hold the epoxy table.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
After wrapping up the project, we have successfully made what we initially planned to make, even with all the unforeseen events.
How I feel.
Thank you for your time.